Time for some fun with the Legends Showcase. And how about this? Katrin Davidsdottir and Annie Thorisdottir. Annie, who was supposed to compete as an individual, recently announced that she is pregnant with her second child, decided to have some fun here at the Legends. She and Katrin Davidsdottir competing together. Katrin was inspired to get into CrossFit by Annie. Yeah. So great to see the two of them out there. We have some teams of two. And if you've been watching the sport for a while, odds are it's because of one of the people on the field right now.
Yeah, that is 100% true. From my perspective, man, these are exactly the athletes that I came into the space watching, being inspired by, doing movements that I was like, wait a second, this is, you can train like this, and oh, by the way, this is measurable to the point where you can compete in a sport like this. These were the faces and these were the athletes that led the way for everyone that we're watching in the individual competition today. There's no doubt about it.
Here's the event for the Legends presented by Concept 2. So obviously teams of two. 50 calories on the Echo Bike, followed by 25 power cleans. They'll do a killer cage down and back. 25 more power cleans, and they're going to close out with 50 calories on the Echo Bike. 185 for the men, 115-ish for the women.
Uh-oh. I see some.
And now the rain is starting to come out. And we knew that this was possibly going to be a factor today. And we'll see what they're going to do with this event, what modifications they may make.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. I already see Tommy Hackenbrook did the veteran thing that he is known for, which is trying to find the best way to perform. The man ran out immediately, put a T-shirt on him and Matt Chan's bar. He's ready to compete, Sean. He ain't here just for fun.
I was going to say, you cannot turn off the competitor in Tommy Hackenbrook. We will have live scoring. We'll have our scoring ribbon up for this event. Katrin and Annie will not be on it. They were a last-minute addition. They said, what the heck, let's just jump in and do this.
They probably asked to not be on the scoring ribbon to show some mercy to the other Legends, I would imagine.
Talking to these Legends athletes, the question was, you know, who do you want to be paired with and who do you not want to be paired with? And a lot of times the not want to be paired with athlete was Rich Froning, because they knew that he was going to try to go out and win this whole thing, and they weren't sure if they were ready for that level of commitment. It was going to be Josh Everett, who is paired up with Rich Froning. And we do have one mixed gender pair. That's on the far right. That's Chris Spealler and 2009 Fittest Woman on Earth, Tanya Wagner.
There is an advantage to being paired with Rich if they don't say you got to split the work equally.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
Hey, buddy. You're the fittest man in history. You go ahead and take this.
Keep going. See Chris Clever out there, along with Kari Pearce, Becca Boyd and Annie Sakamoto. I'm sure that will be a very serious duo. Here we go. Look at Jason Khalipa on the bike.
Oh, yeah, just sending it right out of the gate. Sam Briggs, of course, the engine. She's going hard. Rich with the surprising up-tempo pace there to kick it off. We usually like to see him go steady and smooth and walk people down.
Look at Jason Khalipa is going to work the arms off of that thing.
Jason's got one speed. One speed.
That is a fact. Jason does a great thing in San Jose. He has a group of dads that he gets together in the mornings, sometimes on the weekends, sometimes during the week, just dads that he knows from his kids' school, and they come out and they just throw down. I've been lucky enough to be a part of it sometimes. Really trying to just spread the message of fitness and get people in his local community feeling better. Josh Bridges is now on the bike for that duo. There's Dan Bailey.
That's amazing that he's doing something like that, Sean, because, I mean, that's what draws the masses to CrossFit as a methodology, as an opportunity to do fitness with friends, right? Hey, I don't feel like hopping on the bike and sprinting my face off, but if I'm doing it with you, I'll go just a little bit faster.
It's great because it's just a lot of local dads who don't have a lot of time in their day, busy dads, and they get out, they throw down for a good hour and just try to feel better and so they can keep up with their kids. As Bridges and Khalipa were the first two men to the barbell. Now Katrin Davidsdottir is on the power cleans, Matt Chan and Tommy Hackenbrook. Matt Chan, who back in 2012 finished second at the CrossFit Games to Rich Froning. Froning and Everett. There's Margot Alvarez and Sam Briggs. You want to talk about toughness. Margot Alvarez and Sam Briggs might be two of the most mentally tough athletes ever to compete in this sport.
Yeah, and Sam Briggs, we're talking about an athlete that notoriously wins single modality events, a run, a row, anything that involves, and also, by the way, beating many of the men as she did so. And then Margot Alvarez being that athlete that was continually at the top for several years and won the marathon row, of course.
Rich Froning is going to cycle 185 like it's his job.
Weighted jumping
jacks. I guess it is.
It is. It is. Yeah, Rich makes those look like weighted jumping jacks.
Josh Everett getting a couple reps in. Josh Everett, who has one of those iconic moments from the early days of the CrossFit Games with the deadlift ladder back in 2009. Now down and back on the killer cage. It's Bridges and Khalipa leading the way right now.
You know, this is nice. We get a little taste of what it's going to look like as athletes make their way through this thing. And it is 24 different portions of the rig that the athletes have to touch every one of them, at least as we progress forward for the individuals. Now, I don't know if they got the same rules. Maybe we'll see. Is Tommy Hackenbrook skipping some of the rungs out there on the killer cage?
Looks like he's going rung by rung as Annie Thorisdottir is going to go grab some chalk. Everett and Froning are done with their first trip down. Now they'll make the trip back. There goes Dan Bailey. And Dan Bailey back in 2011 at the killer cage had a pretty good showing when that apparatus first showed up in Carson.
Yeah, that was a fun event. A lot of these athletes were out there on the floor. It was a killer cage with a pedal-only bike, so not like an Echo, but more like a Concept 2 bike, and then also front squats. Wouldn't mind seeing that resurfacing. Watching the athletes give it a go.
Jason Khalipa dropped off the monkey bars and was able to pick back up right where he left off. Now he's struggling a little bit here, getting some chalk. With the individuals, later on, they have this programmed as that those lengths need to be unbroken. But depending on the weather conditions, that might change. Miko Salo and Dan Bailey are now in the lead. Dan Bailey actually trained with Miko when he was competing as an individual.
Miko spent some time in Ohio, I would assume.
Salo, the 2009 fittest man on earth. Khalipa and Bridges are now on the barbell. Tommy Hackenbrook and Matt Chan. Froning and Everett as well. So far today, we've gotten pretty lucky with the weather. It is very humid, very hot, very humid, but we have not had the thunderstorms that we had on Thursday. Salo and Bailey are done. They'll head back to the Echo bike for the final time, 50 more calories.
Yeah, Miko Salo, one of the athletes that I remember coming into CrossFit and watching, just revolutionizing the way that we train and prepare for the unknown and unknowable. He was training at high volumes that were just astounding at the time. You know, that 2009 era was when we really started to see athletes like Rich Froning and Tommy Hackenbrook adopt the training methodology that they saw Miko doing. And it really transformed the way the sport was played and still is played today.
Jason Khalipa pouring everything he has into that Echo bike as Dan Bailey and Miko Salo are trying to hold off Bridges and Khalipa. Now Everett and Froning are heading back to the bike.
This is where being on a team is a beautiful thing, because you finish a workout and you get to the final movement and it's an erg of any kind, a bike, a rower. You're like, nah, I'm just gonna give it a little love and then try to maybe speed up at the end here. But when you get that teammate looking over your shoulder and they're just hoping and praying you can account for a few more calories, you're willing to sell out and send it to the finish just a little bit more.
Dan Bailey and Mikko Salo making quick transitions here. Jason Khalipa is back to his frantic pace. He's trying to screen peek over on Dan Bailey's screen. And Bailey and Salo are done, and they'll be the first across the finish line as Bridges and Khalipa look to be the next two, as long as that Echo bike stays intact from the amount of torque that Khalipa's putting on those handlebars. And Bridges and Khalipa are done. There is Matt Chan. Froning and Everett making the switch. Here comes Tommy Hackenbrook. Far side of the field, Chris Spealler and Tanya Wagner are back to the bike for the final time, along with Chris Clever and Kari Pearce. Katrin Davidsdottir is closing out her set of power cleans for the Icelandic duo. There's Kari Pearce.
Sean, when I think of Kari Pearce, I think of Atalanta. Oh my goodness.
And Mary.
And Mary, yes. I mean, some of the most grueling gymnastics tests that exist or have existed at the CrossFit Games, and wow, did she put on a show for those tests.
There's Katrin Davidsdottir. Margot Alvarez on the right side, working her way back to the bike. And there's Tanya Wagner, who's spent some time on the broadcast team. She was the first ever broadcast partner that I had back in 2012 at the Central East Regional. As Chris Spealler takes his turn on the Echo bike. Annie Sakamoto, also another person we're lucky enough to work with quite a bit. Just a miserable person to be around. Not happy at all.
Zero happiness coming from Annie.
Yeah.
We're joking, folks. If you have any opportunity to ever meet Annie Sakamoto or be in the room, actually, just be in the room at the same time she is, she lights the place up.
Paired up with Becca Boyd, another just outstanding human being. And someone who really was kind of the first person to show that you can be extremely competitive over a long period of time. What she did later in her career was extremely impressive.
Extremely impressive. We talk about durability, smart training, you know, running and managing a gym at the same time. Openly saying, like, hey, I'm not just a full-time athlete, and I'm still doing it and have been doing it for well over a decade. It's amazing, and it really shows the fruits, not just of the competition, but of the methodology of what CrossFit is and can be for all of us.
There is Sam Briggs, the 2013 fittest woman on earth. And Margot Alvarez trying to finish up their 50 calories.
Go.
They are done. Across the finish line at the same time as Becca Voigt-Miller and Annie Sakamoto. And our first Legends event is in the books. As Dan Bailey and Mikko Salo, who put up the fastest time, 6 minutes, 46.47 seconds. Always great to see these athletes who really put this sport on the map get to come out here, have some fun. And there are a lot of people who might actually be in attendance today who've never seen them compete in person.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to get to see them get together, create more memories together. I mean, this is a sorority / fraternity, you know, of people that they've grown up together in this space, right? They learned what it was like to become professional, and or even we can call it semi-professional in the space of like, hey, they got into this by happenstance or by accident, And then they realized that they were actually really good at suffering. and then they became, masters of the craft, to say they were the first to experience the CrossFit Games and lead the way in so many different avenues. So without these athletes, without these humans leading from the front, I don't know where the sport would be today. So we certainly owe them a lot of gratitude and a lot of respect. It's awesome to watch them take the floor in this way. It's definitely for fun, but it's one of those things that we can't take for granted as long as they're willing to go out there and do the thing.
Always fun to watch the Legends. They'll be competing once a day here at the 2023 Rogue Invitational, and we appreciate everything they have done for the sport and for the community.